Welcome to another edition of WIN TV, Washington Informer News, bringing you news that matters. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and TikTok, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I hope you've already also picked up a copy of this week's Washington Informer or read the digital edition online. You know, you can find us at www.washingtoninformer.com. I don't have a copy of the paper to show you. I wanted to do that. It's over there. It's kind of out of reach, but I like to do I don't know what movie I got that from, when the people would present that business card and it was like, bam. But anyway, this is our, this week's issue of the Washington Informer. Make sure you pick it up at newsstands. And yeah, that's me about, I don't know how many years ago, but who's counting? Because we just celebrated our 57th anniversary. October 16th was our 57th anniversary. And you know, a lot of things happened on the 16th. It was also the date of the trying to fix these glasses, the date of the Million Man March happened on October 16th. And there was another occasion that I saw the other day, and I said, wow, you know, that was really, really a special day of things happening in the nation's capital, particularly. Thank you, Sherry. That's it. It was the 10th anniversary of the Martin Luther King Memorial. And we hope to have some coverage for you from that at our next show. But it seems like a lot of folks were there, and it was a great event. And of course, folks say, the National Park Service and others say, that that is the most visited monument in the nation's capital. So we got two, you know, we got the Martin Luther King Memorial and the National Museum of African American History and Culture. So we are putting our stamp on Washington, D.C. We need to be very proud of that. And some of those things happened on October 16th. So I'm always glad to share that date with history in our nation's capital. So today's broadcast is sponsored by AARP. I'm a member. Are you? Anyway, we have joining us for part two of a two-part conversation. We're talking about looking ahead, the state of Black-owned businesses in the DMV. And joining us will be Antoine Ford, who is president and CEO of Enlightened Incorporated and vice chair of the U.S. Black Chambers Incorporated, as well as one of the founding members of the Greater Washington Black Chamber. We also have Anika Hobbs, who is owner of Nubian Human, a beautiful, beautiful boutique. And hopefully all of you all have been there, but if not, you need to go. It's in Anacostia. And Kimberly Marcus, the Director of Supplier Diversity for AARP. We're also going to talk to Dr. V, who will be with us to talk about the COVID variants and what it means to be immunocompromised as we reflect on the life of General Colin Powell. Stay tuned with us through the end of the show. You know, we're going to give away a pair of tickets to see D.L. Hughley at the Capital One Hall in Tysons tonight. If you want the pair, just be the first to send us a photo of yourself reading the Washington Informer before 12:45 today, because the show is tonight. So we need that photo of you reading the Washington Informer before 12:45 today. We will announce the winner at the end of the show. And what we want you to do is send that photo to news, NEWS, at WashingtonInformer.com. Send that photo to news, NEWS, at WashingtonInformer.com. Remember, Capital One Hall is in Tysons, Virginia. So you probably need a car to get there. And this metro, that's a whole nother conversation that we need to have at some point, may not be the best mode of transportation to get to the concert tonight. So keep that in mind when you post your picture. So right now, before we actually go to our broadcast reporter, Curtis Knowles, he just happens to be with us in the office today. So I'm going to ask Curtis to just come around and say hello. He was out covering an event, and you'll read about that and see that later on. But Curtis, hi there. Say hi to our audience.
Hello, everybody.
All righty. Always glad to see you. And he's a hardworking Morgan State graduate. Morgan, is it the Bears?
Yes.
Woo-hoo! Morgan State Bears. When's your homecoming?
It's this week,
Oh gosh, Howard homecoming, Morgan homecoming. A lot of folks are coming home this weekend. So have fun, be safe, and have a great time. Great to see you, Curtis. So we're going to turn the broadcast over now to update on the news in the DMV from Curtis Knowles.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters. Colin Powell, the first Black U.S. Secretary of State, has died from complications of COVID-19. He passed at the age of 84. Powell became the first Black National Security Advisor and the youngest and first Black chairman of the Joint Chief of Staffs under the Reagan and Senior Bush's administrations, respectively. Powell would then be thrusted into the global spotlight after leading the U.S. to victory during the Gulf War. Powell earned not one, but two Presidential Medals of Freedom. President Biden reflected on Powell's legacy, stating, "Colin Powell was a good man, and he will be remembered as one of our great Americans." The FDA is expected to allow Americans to get booster shots from different vaccine makers besides from where they got their original doses. Preliminary results from a recent study found that every combination of mixing and matching COVID-19 booster shots increased immune response without safety concerns. The CDP's Vaccine Advisory Committee is set to make its recommendations this coming week. Health officials say that all coronavirus vaccines still provide a high level of protection, despite concerns that people who haven't received boosters have an increased risk of infection. The U.S. Navy is set to start discharging sailors who refuse to get coronavirus vaccinations. The new Navy guidance released on October 14th said that the new deadlines are November 14th and December 14th for active duty sailors and reservists, respectively, to complete either a 1 or 2 dose vaccine regimen. Sailors who don't have a religious or medicinal exemptions pending will face administrative action, and those discharged for defying the mandate will, quote, receive no lower than a general discharge under honorable conditions, which could result in a loss of veteran benefits. Foggy Bottom's new food hall, the Western Market, located on 2000 Pennsylvania Avenue, has finally opened and is entering its first phase. Phase 1 of the Western Market includes 4 new merchants, including Capo's Italian Deli, Mason's Famous Lobster Rolls, and 2 Black-owned restaurants, Rawish and Roaming Rooster. Mercedes Cowper, who is the manager at Western Market, talks about the venue's addition, saying, "The research into what this market would look like and the fact that DC is such a huge melting pot are both factors that make this a good decision." This is Curtis Knowles with WIN TV News.
Thank you so much, Curtis, and thanks for bringing us that broadcast. We're now going to talk to Dr. V. We haven't seen her in a while. There have been so many updates as it relates to vaccines, the COVID-19 vaccine, and Dr. V is our resident expert and physician when we talk about COVID-19. I thank you so much, Dr. V. You've been with us since the beginning of this pandemic. And, we really do depend on you for information that helps our community. So we want to talk first about General Colin Powell, who's the nation's first Black Secretary of State, who died last week of COVID-19. He was 84 years old. And although he was fully vaccinated, it's been reported that he had cancer and Parkinson's, which raises the question of immunocompromised individuals. Talk about that. What does that mean?
Yeah, so about 10 million Americans are immunocompromised. So if you know 30 people, you probably know someone who's immunocompromised. And it can be as a result of any particular disease. In his case, he had multiple myeloma, which was a cancer of your blood cells. And your blood cells are what you use to fight an infection. But you can be immunocompromised from sarcoid, lupus, transplant, even asthma if you've been on prednisone for a long time. A lot of people don't know pregnancy is an immunocompromised condition. We're seeing a lot of women that are pregnant catch COVID and wind up in the ICU. So immunocompromised people are around us, and they're going to work with us every day. They're our friends and our family. And that's why I tell people it's so important. You don't know everyone's medical history. And it's really important to get masked and vaccinated to protect your community.
I don't hate to get too elementary on this, but sometimes I feel like I have to because I think words are important. So immunocompromised. Yes. Can you break that down for us? What does that mean?
Yeah. So immuno means for your immune system. IMMUNO, or if it was an E on the end, it would be immune system. And compromised just means you're weakened, right? So that's what it means to be immunocompromised. And so you just have a weakened immune system. So any vaccine that you get, if you have a weakened immune system, is not going to necessarily work as well as if you did not have a weakened immune system.
And the weakened system means that for a virus like COVID-19, and there are probably others, means that you're more susceptible to what? To getting the
So you're
virus,
more
to
susceptible. So you're more susceptible to any infection, and you're particularly more susceptible to a viral infection, right? And in the case of COVID-19 is a particularly lethal virus. So in with COVID-19, some people are immunocompromised because of multiple things. So in his case, it was age. He was over 65. He had the cancer of his white blood cells or his blood cells, and also I think he had Parkinson's, right? So the more things that you have, obesity is an immunocompromised condition. When people get a BMI over 40, they have all sorts of inflammatory reactions in their body. And obesity also is something that makes you immunocompromised. So there's a lot of different things, and it layers on top of each other if you have 2 or 3 reasons to be immunocompromised.
so even diabetics, for example, as well.
Diabetics and hypertension less so, but
Okay.
they don't do as well.
Mhm.
So immunocompromised is usually like sarcoid, lupus, transplant patient, rheumatoid arthritis, any sort of cancer on any sort of chemotherapeutic agent that lowers your immune system, and also on any sort of prednisone and pregnancy.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then so for and we asked what are the safety measures. We know that they are some of them are what we've been saying for the past almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
Mask, sanitize, keep a distance from folks who may be immunocompromised. But as you said, we don't always know who is. So what are some of the other safety measures you would
So, I
recommend?
tell people, particularly as you get ready here to go into the holidays, make sure you get your booster shot. If you are over 65 years old and healthy, you need a third booster, or if you had a Johnson and Johnson, you need the second booster. So I tell people, make sure to get a booster shot. When you're indoors, make sure to wear a mask. I personally also we have a lot of restaurants in DC that are partially open and partially indoors that we can enjoy well into the wintertime. So, make sure that you try to stay in aerated spaces where you have fresh air coming in and out. That makes a huge difference. And obviously wear a mask, preferably a KN95 mask, and wash your hands. So those are the main, those are really the main things. But a lot of people don't, they're kind of wondering, should I get a booster? Is it only for immunocompromised people? It's for anyone over 65. And it's also for anyone who has a job that is public facing. So a teacher, a nurse, a physician, a grocery store worker, transit worker, all of those folks should be getting their booster shot.
And I'm going to switch just for a second because I know we're going to have you back, and I still have a zillion trillion questions I want to
Yes.
ask you. It's like you think you know it all, and then all of a sudden, one thing happens, and then all those questions resurface. So
Right.
I'm glad that you're with us, and we're going to talk about a lot more later on. But the other hot topic as it relates to COVID is the vaccine for children, and
Yeah.
the possibility that Pfizer, I think now is looking to possibly getting their childhood vaccination approved, maybe even as early as next week. But
Hmm.
what's going on with vaccinations for children?
Yeah, so it's approved basically 12 and up, and it will most likely be approved. Everything that I've seen around the data looks like it will be approved next week for 5 to 11. And then I also remind pregnant women, the American College of OBGYN recommends that pregnant women get vaccinated. And when you do that, the antibodies go to your baby. And newborns have very poor outcomes like elderly people. So it's
Mhm.
very important to get vaccinated as a pregnant woman so that therefore you give those antibodies to your newborn, and your newborn has some protection until they reach the age of 5.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And so one of the I think I mentioned to you other questions that I asked is that but you corrected me that there may be a lot of parents who are actually fearful, and maybe
Hmm.
they're not, of getting their children vaccinated. Um, Share your response to me as it relates to that.
Yeah, I think it's really important. You want your kids to be able to, really get back to their normal life, and vaccination is really the only way. I have seen kids and young people. I've pronounced someone dead as young as 40 from COVID-19. So I have seen kids and young people get very sick from COVID. I have not seen anybody get very sick from the vaccine. We've given the vaccine now worldwide to over 2 billion with a B people. And so I just remind people that, what's really more dangerous is the disease.
Wow. Dr. V, thank you. Thank you so
You're
much for
welcome.
being with us. Thank you for sharing this information. If you have any questions for Dr. V, you can send them to us at news@washingtoninformer.com, and give a shout out to your program, Dr. V.
Yeah, it's askdrv.us. That's the website. You can feel free to contact me there, reach out if you have any questions. I've been doing some stuff for companies and their subscribers, and just making sure that people are well aware on all issues related to their healthcare and how they can be better empowered.
Wonderful. Thank you. Fantastic. And hopefully we'll
You're
see
welcome.
you next week or soon thereafter.
Absolutely. All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
So, yeah, we didn't say it, I think, today, but we have to continue to remind people: get vaccinated, wear your mask, please wash your hands. We are getting to the point now where we're really ready to shake hands again and give hugs. It's just what we do. But think about the person that we're interacting with, and how we want to make sure that they're safe and we're safe. And so we're going to continue to remind you to do that. And so now we're going to transition and talk about Black businesses in the nation's capital. And we are going to continue our conversation about looking ahead, the state of Black-owned businesses in the DMV. And with us today is Antoine Ford, President and CEO of Enlighten Incorporated, Vice Chair of the U.S. Black Chambers, and a founding member of the Greater Washington Black Chamber. We also have Anika Hobbs, owner of Nubian Human in Washington, D.C., in Anacostia, and Kimberly Marcus, the Director of Supplier Diversity for AARP and the sponsor of this show. Welcome, all of you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Likewise. Glad
yes,
you're
it's
here.
A pleasure.
I'm going to start with you, Antoine. Can you tell us the U.S. Black Chambers has been doing some phenomenal things. And now, thanks to you and some others, we have the Greater Washington Black Chamber. Tell us, why a chapter or a division was established here in the nation's capital, and who's welcome to become a member?
Denise, thanks for that question. And one of the things that we had before is we have 130 plus chambers around the country. And all of a sudden people realize, Antoine, you don't have a Black chamber in DC. What's the problem? What gives here? And we looked around and we really looked at, you're right, how are we making sure that our businesses here in DC grow economically, that we're participating as part of the growth of this area. And we saw that there was a serious need for that. We saw that this is one of the most gentrified cities in the country. And we realized that our businesses weren't growing at the same steam as other organizations. And so we realized that that was necessary. We realized that establishing a chamber here does not mean that the other chambers, like the DC Chamber of Commerce, I used to chair that board, but we needed a specific focus on Black-owned businesses, that we participate in the growth of this city, that we participate in making sure that the information is shared. And so it was very important that we're able to do that, because at a national level, the U.S. Black Chamber speaks on behalf of companies around the country, over 300,000 Black-owned businesses. But we have a massive home field advantage being in D.C., because when we're speaking nationally, we're speaking on the Hill. So we said, why not take advantage of the home field advantage of us being in D.C., taking a few blocks and going on the Hill and making sure businesses in this city, the 51st state, make sure that we're able to get what we need. And that's why it was so important.
And before I move ahead, to ask Anika a question, we celebrated for many years DC being Chocolate City, right? Black, predominantly black political politicians, neighborhoods, gobs of Black-owned businesses. The recent census has shown that those numbers have dropped significantly. And I'm wondering, one, what kind of impact does that have on Black-owned businesses in the District of Columbia? And also, is it going to be harder to actually address the issues that Black businesses face? Antoine?
Well, I mean, I think that's important that we understand, because as we got gentrified, as folks really came through, we really got impacted by wealth, because there was a shift in wealth. There was a shift in direction. There was a shift in where people shopped. And so where we typically were located in enclaves, you go back to 8th Street, where that used to be, 14th Street, T Street in Anacostia. Well, all of a sudden, when the shift happened, the economics went with it. And so, and in some cases, economically, as taxes increased in the city, people then started to shift out to the suburbs. And so we saw the economic shift. Now, on the other hand, if we're able to participate in this, which is one of the things I'm driving towards this, we want to make sure that we do that. So I think that's important, that the gentrification happened. You know, being a native Washingtonian, I remember when we were 70-some%, and now I know we're somewhere a little bit above 40% of the population, and that's significant. We saw that the Wall Street Journal did a study on that, on the difficulty and impact of Black-owned businesses. So we have to make sure we recognize that and stay in our community. Stop selling.
Which is a great segue to Anika, who, of all places, set up shop in Anacostia, which once was, a very active and lower part of Good Hope Road and Martin Luther King Avenue, a pretty vibrant shopping district for a while, and then sort of declined and has been redeveloped. And you're helping to contribute to that, Antoine. But, to set up in Anacostia, and Anika, let's talk a little bit about that and how you all are sort of growing a vibrant business community in that area, and how the Greater Washington Black Chamber actually helps.
Yeah, I mean, we've been there since 2013. So as of September, that made 8 years that we've been in Anacostia. And it was very important for us to be in a community that looked like us and being able to serve in a community that looked like us. So we're just very thankful to be in Anacostia. I mean, the level of community and support is something, like I always say, nothing that you could ever write about in a business plan. And so I think a lot of the challenges that a lot of other businesses faced west of the river, we haven't had, because our community is so strong there. And as far as just, organizations that can help and, support and things like that, I think community, like the Black Chamber of Commerce, what comes out of that is having a network. And that's one of the things that has allowed us to continue to grow and thrive. And when I think about those businesses that you talk about that didn't necessarily make it, I think a lot of times it's because they didn't necessarily have that network. So when we went through, or still going through, the pandemic, we were able to dig into those who knew that grants were coming out, that knew they could partner you with a CDFI or a financial advisor and things like that. I think opportunities like the Black Chamber of Commerce help with businesses to continue to thrive, not just when things are going well, but also through those difficult times too.
And I'm assuming that because of COVID, that was particularly important. One, because the networking, you couldn't get out to network in person.
Right.
So how did you maintain those connections during COVID?
I think one of the things is to remember that although we've all got organizational or business names or titles behind us, we're all still people, right? And we were all as globally going through the same thing. So I think a lot of those conversations started with, how are you? How can I support you? In both ways. It was two-way traffic. And so for us, I think, a lot of people reached out to us to support, and we reached out to a lot of folks as well. One of our biggest things that we say is that small business can be giants too. So how can we support the businesses that we work with, the organizations that we work with, and those that supported us? So it was just a natural human conversation, which networking should be anyway. And I think that allowed us, both the organizations and businesses, to thrive and still make it through till today.
Kimberly, I want to jump to you because you're with AARP. Of course, you have roots in the city. I mean, you have not always been with AARP, so you know the city very well, like the back of your hand. But now that you're there and in charge of supplier diversity, how do you fit into the scenario? What is it that AARP looks for when trying to bring on certain businesses to provide services or do business with AARP?
Well, Denise, first of all, I want to thank you for all the years that you have been such a poignant Black voice for our community. And when we decided to partner with you, it was a no-brainer. At AARP, we want to be intentional and not just be a mouthpiece. We want to put, our money where our mouth is. So at AARP, we really reestablished our supplier diversity program about 6 years ago, and wanted to be intentional in making sure that we were working with small and diverse businesses and local businesses. And in the wake of all of the unrest, as well as with COVID, we've been super, super intentional with the Black community and Black businesses. So while our supplier diversity program definitely focuses on women and all minorities, small businesses, LGBTQ, veteran, and disabled-owned businesses, we are putting an extra effort towards Black-owned and local businesses. So this is just one of many, many platforms in which we are trying to reach the African-American business community. And I think Anika said it very well, that we're not just I'm putting myself in the we of small businesses. We're not just small businesses. Some of these Black-owned businesses are mighty giants, right?
Yes,
and they can play with the big boys, and sometimes are more agile and more innovative. And really, this is what I say: we kill what we eat, right? So every contract is important to us, right? So they're going to answer the phone at 3:00 in the morning. They're going to make sure that they beat deliverables. They're going to make sure that they go above and beyond. But that's always been the African American community anyway. So it was not a hard shift or a big pivot to work with small and African-American owned businesses. We're just being more intentional in the last 18 months.
I'm gonna, and I hope this is okay, I'm gonna pivot off script for a minute here, because Antoine and I know the greater Washington Black Chambers had these conversations about doing business with local governments, and governments they cannot designate Black owned businesses. And that's almost like the shining star, or whatever you want to call it, with working with a company that can make that designation. Can you, and be specific about who they want to do business with. It's not to the exclusion of others, but we can say we want to do business with Black-owned companies. Antoine and Kimberly, can you all just sort of discuss a little bit about that, and how the distinction and why it's important to have that specification? Either one of you, Antoine.
Kimberly, you want to go first?
Sure. So those who don't know, my background is in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I've been in that space for about 22 years. And prior to AARP, I was a presidential appointee under President Obama I was the third in command at the Minority Business Development Agency, which is the only federal agency mandated to help minority businesses grow to size and scale via contracts, capital, and emerging markets. So there is actually an agency who specifically works with growing minority businesses. But to your point, Denise, they aren't saying just Black, right? So it is Hispanic, it is Asian American, it is African American. But in corporations and nonprofits, they can specifically earmark funds for a specific category, right? And so at AARP, we do specifically earmark funds for different initiatives to help different groups grow, right? So whether it's African American, whether it's Hispanic, whether it's LGBT, we can earmark to make sure that there is equity, right? So equity is important. Everyone doesn't get the same thing, but equity is important so that it can become equal, right? So you may have to give a little bit more to a different group to get them on the same level. And this is the example that I always give about equity. If I'm 6 feet tall and I'm watching a baseball game and I'm looking over a fence, and the fence is 5 feet 10 inches, I can see easily over the fence because I'm 6 feet tall. But if someone is 5'3", they can't see over the fence. So they need to have something to stand on to give them equity to get to what I'm already getting. And that's why we at AARP are intentional in making sure that we're closing the gap that the marginalized and companies that aren't normally worked with we make sure that we're intentional with working with them.
I love that. And Antoine,
Mhm.
so I mean, that makes the hurdle, as Kimberly so I think adequately put it, when you don't have that specification, then it becomes, an unbalanced objective, right? To make sure that businesses get equity, but they don't get it because
Mhm.
you can't specify. Explain how the impact of that.
Well, one of the things that we're doing, and Kim and I worked together nationally on a few of these in our previous lives. One of the things we're just doing, and we are addressing this, the U.S. Black Chamber is addressing this straight on. We are building out a Black business designation with Buy Black. We just launched that at our national conference last week. We're asking businesses to accept that as a certification that they are a Black business. And so if they sign up for the U.S. Black Chambers Buy Black, they get certified as a Black-owned businesses. Kim was straight on. We now are saying corporate America, we have a designation now as a Black-owned business. And so we've been having conversations with the large entities. I have those conversations on a weekly basis and saying now specifically, you have no excuses of saying you can't find Black-owned businesses. And we've certified them. I got to get Anika certified in our certification, by the way. Because if you're not, what happens, Denise, and Kimberly knows this, when we look at the macro spend, and they say we spent this much money with minorities, and when we ask the question, how much of that money was spent with Blacks? We don't know on the federal level. So we're challenging that status quo by saying, government, we have a certification now that we'd like you to think about accepting. Commercial entities, as Kimberly talked about, we have a designation now that's been certified as Black-owned businesses, because if we don't do that, we'll get mixed into us minorities, which include white females and a whole bunch of other folks that specifically we're saying get your business, but don't include us in that particular spend because it does hurt us on designations and the spend.
And Anika, as a business owner, I mean, you have a real retail shop, right? And so you're selling consumer items. A lot of them are from, domestic companies. Some you do a lot of global work, particularly African-centered products. When you listen to this, how does this impact your business and your business model? I mean, some would think, I'm just selling products. This conversation doesn't apply to me, but how does it apply to you?
Yeah, I mean, this is completely what we're about. Before we're just a business, we're also an ecosystem. So it's important for us to know and have opportunities not only for ourselves to grow, but all of the artists and brands that we work with as well. Just for us, we have one store in Washington, D.C. We have another one in Baltimore, Maryland, but we're also an e-commerce store. So we not only work with international designers, but we also have international customers. So having these type of opportunities and this type of network is so important for us because we rely on our brands, our Black-owned brands specifically, to keep going. They are part of our food chain. They're a part of our supply chain. So it's extremely important to ensure that those opportunities are available and that they're earmarked both nationally and internationally to keep these Black brands going. So for us, it's Black first, everything. Nubian Human, the name, it should be very clear that that's what we're about. So of course, having these opportunities, and even if the opportunity doesn't allow for us to do that. So for example, if, funds are earmarked through Target, if we're not able to supply and demand there, we definitely work with artists that do the same too. And that's right in line with our business model because we are B2C. So we do direct sales to customers, but we are also B2B too. So there is a level of consulting and support that we do directly with Black-owned businesses as well.
And for companies like an AARP, but Anika just mentioned Target, and there are many others out there who are trying to, let's hope that they are, trying to diversify their suppliers. What is the way that AARP has been able to accomplish this, Kimberly? And also want to ask you, Antoine, how does the U.S. Chambers, or here in Greater Washington, how do you sensitize companies to make sure that they are utilizing or even know how to find Black suppliers? Kimberly?
Yes. So first of all, I want to make sure that I let everyone know that we always want to work with the best companies, right? So we're not saying only work with Black owned or Hispanic owned or LGBT owned companies. We're saying work with the best companies, but make sure that you are equaling the playing field and actually looking for certified diverse businesses, right? And so at AARP, we are very intentional in making sure that we partner with various different organizations. So whether it be the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce or WeBank or the National Minority Supplier Development Council or Disability In, we sponsor, we mentor, we develop suppliers so that if they're not quite ready to be in our supply chain, we get them ready. We also help them partner with other companies that are already doing business with AARP. So the benefit of being certified through a third party organization like the Black Chamber of Commerce is that all of the things that you get, the mentorship, the development, the training, and the access to corporations and nonprofits. So while being a member of US Black Chamber, all of their members get access to us. They get to come to different meet and greets. A lot of it's virtual now. They get to do matchmakers where they get 15 minutes to meet with me or a designee to talk about what their products and services are. And we only meet with suppliers where there's low hanging fruit. And what I mean by low hanging fruit is there's going to be an opportunity within the next 6 to 12 months because we don't want to waste your time and we don't want our time wasted. We also have a portal system at AARP where if you're interested in doing business at AARP, we ask that you go to our portal, put your information in there and put your certification in there. Once that's in there, you are viewable by all 2,600 employees at AARP. So when we're looking for a needs and service, we go to the portal. It's not a black hole. I promise you it's not. We go there. We look for suppliers. And then also the best way to get into AARP is through our state offices. We have 50 state offices. So you would be starting small, right? Maybe the contract will be 2,500, maybe it'll be 50,000, but eventually you'll move your way up to working with our national office here in Washington, D.C. And that's where the big bucks are. But you start small, have a good presence at AARP, and then we work you into the bigger contracts.
Wonderful. I want to come back to part of that in a minute, but Antoine, I mean, AARP clearly has set an example. Not all companies are like that, or maybe there are others that you would sort of put on the good list if there is one. So, I mean, but what are the conversations that you're having, or the chamber's having, as it relates to others who you want to who are trying to understand how do we diversify our supplier base?
Well, it's twofold. One, we present companies like AARP and say, look at what they're doing, right? So we present good examples. So I'll give you an example. A few years ago, Kimberly in a different realm said, Antoine, she went to our president, we need businesses that can do this. We didn't have them at the time. She challenged us on that. Antoine, if you want me to give business opportunity, find the businesses. We didn't have the chamber at the time, right? So we need to know and to be able to present. And I love what Anika said about her scale, right? She wants to continue. She's doing business internationally. So it's our job on the chamber list to make sure that, when the people in Greece know that she's doing at the end of the day. Now, to your other point, we are holding folks accountable locally in DC that say they want to do more with Black-owned businesses, and they come and they talk about goals and objectives, but the not having the low-hanging fruit is important. For us, it's saying, I don't want you to have a good conversation with us to say I had a good conversation with the Greater Washington Black Chamber of Commerce or a great conversation with the U.S. Black Chamber, so I can put that on, get the photo op, and say, look what I've done. I will not allow that to happen in what my purchase I have, because we have to be responsible from the smallest businesses, mom and pop, to the biggest ones that we have. And so, Denise, to your point, we're holding people accountable. If you publicly say you're going to do something, then we're going to hold you accountable to the fact that you want to be able to do it. And then we're going to help you find the mom and pops that's on Minnesota Avenue that have really good work and they do really good job, but we want to help you find them. And that's our goal.
And
challenging.
It takes me to another point when you talk about being found. Of course, there are a lot of Black-owned businesses that don't want to identify with being Black-owned. That's their choice. That's fine. And if it works for them, as my daddy said, if you're happy, I'm tickled pink. That used to be his phrase. But for those who do want to be found, and found in that, in order to get those take advantage of those opportunities. Anika, I want to ask you about branding. I mean, yours is clear. Like you said, the name says it. You go into the shop, it says it. Actually, the neighborhood you're in says it, but there's other things that you do to brand your business so that you can be found. And can you talk about, some of the things that you've done either through social media, your website, the networks that you have joined? How do you brand your business?
Yeah. So, one of the biggest things that we always talk about, you ask anybody about branding, usually they're always talking about the logo, fonts, colors, things like that. But for us, it starts with knowing your audience and knowing what your audience needs. What is your audience gravitate to? And one of the examples that I have as far as branding is the first publication that we were ever in. Our business, like we said, is Black owned. We're in Black communities. And so one of the first publications we were ever in, or the first publication, was the Washington Informer. We made the first page. That was like the biggest, the highlight of, being a small business is you just open your doors and you're on the front of a newspaper. That's huge, right? But branding wise, you and your team knew what your customer needed to see. This is a Black publication. This is a Black owned business, helping Black businesses as well. So I think just knowing what your customer needs, that was strong branding. 8 years later, I am still committed to the Washington Informer, right? So that right there is really strong branding. So for us, it's about, of course, the language and knowing the imagery, but word of mouth is actually really huge. And customer service. I think a lot of us forget about that. As small businesses, we think we can just make really great products and not knowing how to talk to your customer, how to retain that customer. That's something that's really, really important to us. So our brand isn't just about like Nubian Human. It's about community. We are where we are because of the network of businesses that we've worked with. Over 600 artists and brands from all over the world, over 6 continents and 35 countries. You can't do that by yourself. Where we are, we cannot do that by ourselves. So when it comes to branding, we think about all of those things. What are the messages that include that level of community and the impact that our community has with us and that we're trying to have in our community? And how can we continue with opportunities and everything like that? So for us, branding is more than just the color. Of course, we just actually rebranded. We'll be launching that in 2022, very early. But it's not just about colors or fonts or your logo. It's about how do you resonate with your customers, your supporters and stakeholders, those that are thinking about and resonate with your brand.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Antoine and Kimberly to talk about that because, the question is, how do you find Black-owned businesses? And so, on the social media side, Antoine, or virtual platforms or whatever folks are using these days, is it helpful to explore these opportunities? And how is the chamber communicating that to its members?
Oh, it certainly is. I think one of the things that we try to do, and I'll first take it from a business owner myself, if you're not telling your story, then either they're not going to hear about it or somebody else is going to tell your story the way they want to tell it. And you don't want to do that. Let's say you have restaurants. Somebody has a bad experience. They go on Yelp and they tell some story. It may not be true, but if you don't tell your story, somebody goes to look for it. Whatever the Yelp story says happens to be fact. And so I look at it from that perspective. And I love what Anika said. I need to tell what my story is, the way I want to be seen and the way I want to be viewed. And so one of the things that I think culturally we have to accept that, all forms of social media make sense, but it has to make sense for your entity. And so we sort of looked at, for example, right now I have an intern from Howard University School of Communication. I'm like, I need that new thought and that new way to say, hey, tell me how I should be thinking about Instagram from a technology company who's trying to market to folks, because I'm looking at not only my services, I'm looking at it from a recruiting perspective. I want new folks coming in and they're going to be on IG and maybe not Facebook, right? Maybe not LinkedIn. And so it's the totality of who you are. And I think you just have to tell your story such that that message is counterbalancing the negative parts or any other message, because people will tell their story version of it. And I want them to tell. So the chamber itself is telling people, get out there, understand who you are, tell your message, like Anika just said, make sure people understand your service and who you are at your core. Everything else will sort of go around it. And I know Kim's a big proponent of AARP's social media side as well as other branding, because we've talked about this before.
I'm telling you, all Americans, regardless of age, gender, ethnicity, everybody knows AARP. And it's interesting, Kimberly, because, once upon a time, you all spelled that out, association, what is it? American Association of Retired People. I think that was it, or persons.
Yes.
Maybe it was persons, not people, persons. And then decided, which was a great branding opportunity, we're going to change that. We're going to go to AARP. We're just going to use our acronym, and that's going to be our name. And you have taken that, and it skyrocketed. But so I want to ask about that. But going back to a point that you made earlier with regard to your suppliers, there may be this misperception that in order to be a supplier for AARP, I have to be able to serve a certain community, which is 55 plus. Address that.
I have so many thoughts. I think everything that all of y'all said is spot on. So first I want to address loving how Anika is authentically and unapologetically African-American, Black, right? And so you said some people don't want to be seen in that light. Well, work it to your advantage, right? You can get certified and use the certification to your advantage when you need to use it. So that's what I think of. So if you are a woman, if you are a veteran, if you are part of LGBT community, get all the certifications and then use the ones that you need. Because what people don't sometimes know is that companies are trying to meet certain quotas. So if their quotas are low in the LGBT, they're going to put you in that space, even if you're Black. If they're low in the women and you're Black and LGBT, they're going to put you in the women's space. Not necessarily double counting or triple counting, because we at AARP do not do that at all. But if you fall into multiple categories, you'll choose the category that you need the most representation during that month, during that quarter, during that year. So that's why certification and getting certified as an African-American owned business is so important. Also at AARP, this is the new face of AARP. It is no longer your grandmother's AARP. We want you to reimagine yourself at AARP. And we do have the largest magazine readership, and we do have over 38 million members. And so we want to make sure that our supply base looks like our membership base, looks like our employee base, and looks like our volunteer base. We have all types of people, all walks of life, who are employees and members of AARP, and we want to make sure that our supply base is the same way. So social media, yes, we're getting with the times. AARP just has a new TikTok account, right? So I would never think I would even be on TikTok, right? My children love TikTok. I'm hip to TikTok. AARP is hip to TikTok. So we've got YouTube, we have Facebook, we have IG, we have I'm missing one of the social media, LinkedIn. So we meet you where you are, right? So you may not personally see me on TikTok.
I was getting ready to ask.
On TikTok. Also, social media for businesses. I think that it is very, very important, especially during COVID. And one thing that we're actually doing with the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce on November the 3rd, we're having a webinar that everyone is invited to. It's a free webinar, and it's Winning New Business, What's Working Now, Adapting Your Marketing and Sales in the New Virtual World, right? Because some companies have not adapted. So please come and register at impressyourprospects.com. That's impressyourprospects.com. Sign up for the webinar, which is at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on November 3rd. If you didn't get that web address, you can always go to aarp.org and put supplier diversity in the search engine, and you can join the webinar, because we really do think that it is important to make sure that Black-owned businesses are pivoting, because I don't think even when we go back into the world and we're kissing and hugging, minorities, African Americans, we're huggers. We're touching. I know I missed it all day long, but there is still going to be that social media presence. And so companies are going to have to pivot, or they will be left behind.
I want to tell an interesting story. When Vice President Kamala Harris came into office, everybody knew her brand of Converse, right? She wore the Converse. So I tried to find a Black-owned shoe store that sold Converse. I found one actually on Martin Luther King Avenue, but they didn't sell Converse. What I found out about this Black-owned shoe store was that they are probably one of the only shoe stores in the nation that has a Nike, franchise or distributorship or whatever Nike provides. Converse is owned by Nike, right? And, yes, Converse is owned by Nike. And he said to me, as we were talking about how he markets his business, because a lot of people don't know he's there, but any given Saturday morning, you will see a line down Martin Luther King Avenue of folks going into his store. He says all he does is post what he has to offer on Instagram. His patrons know how to follow them, and they come to him up and down the East Coast because of this unique relationship that he has with Nike. But he uses social media to market his business, and it was an amazing story. I thought, Antoine, I know he needs to be a member. I don't know if he is.
I'm going up to see to get
I'll
him.
recruit that one.
Let's get that one. Let's get that one. Now that I'm here down in Costi, I'm hunting.
Yeah, but I mean, what would you say, or Anika, what would you say about that?
I do know the shoe store. I'm a customer. So, social media is everything. I think finding the right social media for your audience is super important, right? Because there's so many different ways in which, people engage with social media. So whether it's Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, Facebook, you have to know who your audience is. But I think they've done a lot through the pandemic to try to support small businesses, allowing shopping through social media, which is also huge. You can do a link tree so that you can have different links to different sites on your one Instagram page, for example. So it's not just your website, but if you also have a service or you're supporting an organization, you can see all of that in one click. Social media is huge. Like for us, we have like almost 30,000 followers on one of our social media pages. And it's helped us tremendously, just not even to sell, but to tell your story and be authentic. Like Kimberly said, that's what everyone is looking for, is real, authentic stories. Whether it's a milestone or it's a low stone, but social media is great to just have that conversation and to have that voice. And it's also something that's really great to talk directly to your customer. I think as small businesses, we wear a lot of hats. So a lot of times, just like Kimberly said, you may not see my face on social media, but I think, with our customers being able to talk to us through that platform, they feel connected. And that's what we all need. That's the basic human nature, is to feel connected. And so you can do that as a small business through social media.
And I want to ask you, Antoine, because I know the U.S. Black Chambers has an app, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of a Black business portal, I would think. Mm-hmm. But is that, I mean, how has the Chamber used social media to market itself and its members?
Almost all the time. One of the things that we do, for example, with Kimberly, we'll push out her platform throughout the country. We'll make sure that every one of our members is going to be heard. And because we have such a wide platform, we can use that. So you can have a local business in DC wanting to be able to sell services, and somebody from California will hear about it. So that's the importance of having such a wide spread and being a member of the Greater Washington Black Chamber of Commerce, because you're tapped into a large-scale nationwide organization. As a matter of fact, international, because we have 4 chambers, 2 in Africa and a couple in Canada now. And so we're really spreading out. So from a social media perspective, we highlight businesses across the country. We make sure that if something's happening here, we make sure other people know about it. And we magnify that by retweeting. So, we'll say, at USBC, they're going to retweet it along those lines. We'll do it via LinkedIn and really spread that message. So it really gets magnified.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, I have totally enjoyed this conversation. And as an independent media organization, I can proudly say, join the Greater Washington Black Chamber or the U.S. Black Chamber. Shop at Nubian Human. Go there, spend your money, do your holiday shopping there. Please do. And if you're how old do you have to be now, Kimberly, to be a member of the AARP?
We will start sending out mailers around 45, but to get the full benefit, you have to be 50.
All right. I said 55 plus earlier, but to be 50, join AARP. We look at it for, I mean, in the past, people did look at it for, what are the benefits, what are the discounts? But even this is I think, some great news about how AARP is supporting Black-owned businesses. I want to give you all in the next couple of minutes an opportunity to give some closing remarks. And I'll start with you, Anika, then I'll go to Antoine, and then to Kimberly. Anika?
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I love this conversation. This probably could keep going if we have more time. I would love for it to keep going. I know one of the questions was, what are some of the resources that businesses can use? And so just to note some of the things that have been super helpful for us, local government is really important. So with your Black Chamber of Commerce can also help with that as well. But Baltimore City has been amazing. DC government has really been supportive. And also, again, networking is huge for small businesses. So 1863 Ventures, which focuses on minority businesses within the district or in the DC, Virginia, Maryland areas has been awesome. Traffic Sales and Profit, which is also a mastermind, which I really recommend a lot of small businesses get into. You want to be around like-minded businesses to propel your business, which is really important. And the last thing is, if you ever want to find Nubian Human, we're at 1231 Good Hope Road in Southeast DC, and we're also at 211 West Reed Street in Baltimore, Maryland, or online at nubianhuman.com.
Wonderful. We're going to put that local address up if we can, the 1231 Good Hope Road, while Antoine gives us some words to live by.
So, Anika, I'm at 12:05 now, so I need to see you soon as they release my gates. But we're here. And I agree with her. I mean, I think there's so many resources. USBC, we have microloans that we're giving the companies right now. Amazon, we're getting more businesses online via we partner with them with their VBA, getting businesses online with Amazon. Locally, DC, I was just talking to the director today, a program called DC Kiva, which allows businesses to do crowdfunding loans. USBX, which is another program that these guys are putting out. So there's so many programs and ways to take advantage of them. You can go to gwbcc.org to get more information. You can go to the DC Small Business Office to get that type of information. And the last thing I'll leave folks with, I am a big proponent of scaling. One of the things that I am really pushing both locally and nationally is that our businesses work together and think we and not me. And we form joint ventures, we merge, because we have to think scale to be able to do something about the wealth gap in this particular city. It is becoming bigger and we have to address that. And the only way we do it is to scale.
Fantastic. Kimberly?
And yes, I guess I will have some closing remarks by saying that AARP is so proud to really sponsor this program today. Denise, we have been friends for many years, and you have been friends of AARP for many years too. And we stand in partnership with you to make sure that the Washington Informer continues to be a very viable and important voice to our community. So it is our absolute pleasure to be with you today. We want people to find us, our supplier diversity program, at supplierdiversity@aarp.org. That's supplier diversity at aarp.org. You can email me there. I personally do get those emails and members of my team, and we will respond to you. Also, if you go to supplierportal.aarp.org, that's supplierportal.aarp.org, and put your information in our portal so that you can be viewable by all of our employees, so that when opportunities are available, when we have trainings, when we have webinars, we can reach out to you, because we are purposeful in making sure that we work with small, local, diverse, minorities, and Black-owned businesses in the DMV.
Fantastic. That's great. That's wonderful. I want you all to let you know how grateful I am that you all are here. We can't talk enough about our our small, well, our Black-owned businesses. Like you said, Kimberly, some of them are really doing our big businesses doing some big things. And Antoine Ford's company, I think, actually falls in one of those categories. Woo-hoo! But anyway, have a great weekend. I want to thank you. I look forward to having more conversations like this. And I'll invite people to go back and listen to part 1 of this conversation. You can do that by going to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. On YouTube, all one word, Washington Informer TV, and look at part 1. You all have a great weekend and much success. And Antoine, looking forward to your grand opening in a few weeks, maybe.
Few weeks. We'll see you soon.
All righty. Talk to you then.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So we want you to continue to stay tuned for Bridge TV with the Media Prints and What's Going On DC and the Sounds of the DMV. One of the two or both of them, we'll see in a few minutes. Otherwise, continue to watch us here on Fridays, every Friday from noon to 1. If you have some ideas about some individuals, particularly a Black-owned business that you would love for us to highlight, we certainly do want to hear from you. So send that information to news, NEWS, at WashingtonInformer.com. Until then, have a safe week and be safe.
We made it to another week, and you know my favorite 4 words. Thank God it's Friday! Are you ready for some good stuff from our DC people? Well, find out who's running for mayor in DC, which DC star will be on Zeus, and let's say we are all happy to welcome home Fat Trail. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to What's Going On, DC. I'm your boy, the Media Prince, and I want to bring you all things DMV. Let's start the trending news off with the biggest news to hit the city, the return arrival of Fat Trail. That's right, DC superstar recording artist was just released over the weekend. And let's just say the city is super happy, and he has been everywhere in just a matter of days, including this weekend with Little Durk at WEG Studios. But let's take a look at the happy moment of his release.
Hey man,
What's up, man?
Play some, man.
Ish, man. They just freezing. I'm from real. You know what the it is. The king of Northeast is back, nigga. And you know what the is up with me, nigga. You know.
Now let's switch to another MC, NYC's own Jim Jones. Now yes, we love the guy, but DC, I think he is tripping. How about you? Take a look at this, courtesy of DMV Hoods and News.
I don't care what you niggas in DC say. I made these shits famous. Get it? Crispy pear for crispy wear.
Ari Lennox with a message on being nasty.
So what if someone is, their version of nasty is nasty as hell? So what? Like, let I don't know. Like, I just feel like when it's healthy and safe, it's beautiful. Be nasty. Go on. When it's right. Go on.
DMV's own Tamara J shuts down the stage with John Legend. Yes, the John Legend. Take a look as she takes us to DC Church. You remember One Us in Park? So you def remember Roxy. But did you know that she is a student at Bowie State University? Yep, the entertainment journalist and actress is a proud attendee of BSU. Check out her post on Instagram. Wale for Up Rocks magazine. Taraji P. Henson for Women's Health magazine, looking fine as ever. on mothers. I mentioned Zeus earlier. Well, our favorite social media influencer, DC Zone, Roland Ray, will be on the Zeus Network's The Conversation with Bobby Lights from Love and Hip Hop Miami. Take a look at this funny clip.
I'm 25 and popping. This shit's old news. If he come disrespectful and try to act all cute, it's gonna be up and stuck. It's not nothing funny. I'm not here to play games with you.
Just keep you and your tricycle over there.
Roland Ray plays too much. Okay, next up, IDK with a message to never give up. DMV's own 35 under 35 Hell Zell is also an amazing teacher who has been helping students all over our area and now across the country with the release of his children's educational hip-hop mixtape. Take a look.
Okay, now. We gotta talk about numbers. Now, numbers are very, very important. You may need them when you're counting your money, when you're doing your math, if you're adding or if you're subtracting. I need to see who knows how to count. No, not just the 5 or the 10. I'm talking about all the way to 100. Oh, you can? Okay, we gonna see. I need to see who can count all the way to 100. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I can count to 100. I can count to 100. I can count to 100.
The Howard students protest the horrible living conditions on the campus, including mold. Ugh. Well, Gucci Mane's label 1017 included many artists that were supposed to perform at the university. Well, they canceled that and stood in solidarity with the students. Find out more everywhere. As a matter of fact, click the hashtag Howard University. You'll see. Robot dogs in DC. Take a look, courtesy of the DMVD.
Are you kidding me? Oh my God.
Ward 8 council member Trayon White puts in his hat for the bid of mayor. Yes, sir, he is now running for DC mayor. But make sure to get out there and vote and let your voice be heard. We don't want to let any moments like this slip away, because you make the choice for your city. And lastly, I want to say a happy birthday to us. Yes, the Washington Informer turned 57 this week. And it's beautiful to see the legacy of such a historical paper that is still just as snazzy back then, today, 57 years later. Cheers to us. Well, another end of the week, folks. Until next week, I'm about to head out and hit the streets of the DMV. For all this and more, please head over to wibridgedc.com and do not miss out on the Bridge Greatness. Subscribe to our YouTube and follow us on social media and hit the hashtags WGODC and WIBridgeTMP style. Now, we're signing off. Go have a great weekend and be safe.